ago, 1 year and a few days ago, I had a chance to chat with the forum about what we thought was coming from what we saw, and about how the agency was systematically across the boards over the entire scope of all it did being dismantled by pulling the cards out at the base of the house of cards. And the only thing I'll say about that prediction is it has turned out to be more thorough and worse than what we thought and what I told you about. So that's not good news, but we have to be and are distracted by so many other very, very important things. I mean, I've spent the other half of my life worried about ethics and corruption, and we seem to have a clinic of that going on in Washington. And it's hard to, that's a little easier to understand because it doesn't involve science. It involves, for some people, slightly over half of us, the knowledge between what's right and what's wrong. Other people seem to be bewildered by tax cuts and maybe aren't as concerned about what's right and what's wrong, including many of my friends and neighbors. So, you know, there's a lot to distract us. But what we're here, Marilyn and I are here to talk about it. Marilyn is an environmental legend, but Marilyn actually is up there at AK Steel, talking with the people, organizing, finding out facts, and occasionally we will try to help her out. And when I say we, our law office, which is now called Altman Newman Company, LPA, as of this year, and we're going to have our Facebook and everything fixed so that you can find it that way. Justin Newman is here, and he's my partner. He's earned that lofty position by working very hard for a long time on the representing people like the Sierra Club. And also Robin Burgess is a lawyer with our office, and Jennifer O'Donnell, who many of you know from her civic activities, but she was a paralegal with us first before she went to work with Roxanne, and then she came back to work with us again. These people spent long hours, as I've had the pleasure of doing for over 4 decades, working on this stuff and doing the best we can to represent people who need representation. I used to years ago say it's easy to represent the guys driving the tanks in Tiananmen Square. It's a little harder to represent the students that are getting run over. But that's what we do. And we try to stop them from getting run over with the pollution issues. So I wanted to pick on a couple of things that Marilyn said, pick up on them and translate them to what's happening at the U.S. EPA that shows you what is the problem with some of the things going on in Washington, and then how that's going to ripple down. And I only want to do it on a couple of issues because literally if you go to our website, our Facebook page, we have a website too, but the Facebook page is the one that chronicles all the new developments. And it's, I think right at the moment, it's called David Altman Company Fights Pollution or something like that. And you can find that on Facebook by putting in David Altman Company. But that's going to get adjusted. But you will just literally go down and look at the journalism and the reports on, and our little comments on what's been going on, and you'll see the scope of this. But it's too exhausting, and you lose sight of it. Did any of you ever see Schindler's List? Well, Schindler's List had a great device in there. You had this massive loss of humanity, but they had the little girl in the red raincoat that they used. Do you all remember that? And it helped you follow the scope of what is otherwise unimaginable tragedy. Well, that device is something that lawyers need to keep in mind, because when you're dealing with a situation, like, for example, you heard Marilyn talk about PM10, I think she mentioned once. That's a bigger particles. There are particles that are even bigger that you can see. And in pollution cases, what you can see is like a tracer bullet, but it isn't necessarily what's going to damage you. It just helps you follow the tragedy that's going on. So it wasn't until fairly recently that we do a lot of air pollution cases for many decades now. But we figured out that we could get people inexpensive monitors, of which the Sierra Club owns one, to monitor PM 2.5 because you can't see it. So our people report what they see, and then the agency dutifully runs out there and says, yeah, you got stuff on your car. How do we know you haven't, like Marilyn said, washed your car 12 weeks ago? And so, eventually, there all this documentation, the visual stuff gets reported, and occasionally they go over and talk to the company, and then they don't do anything, well, just like Marilyn said. But by measuring the PM 2.5 with instrumentation, you can actually go into the health effects. And the health effects are growing the knowledge of them, scientific knowledge, medical knowledge, based on studies all over the world. Many of the scientists are right here in the U.S., and actually we know some of the best ones around the country, because we have to, as lawyers, stay up on this stuff, not as doctors or epidemiologists, but as lawyers. So that is the one thing I want to emphasize with you today is there was a 1993 Harvard study that picked up on the danger that this small PM 2.5 can cause. And there are all kinds of worldwide studies going on, and it's all saying the same thing. This stuff is really dangerous. And think about the statistics that Marilyn gave, and think what they mean. Well, the unimaginable, there have always been a few congressmen who said, the trouble with those studies is these people give you information, but we don't know who they are. The public can't tell who the people are that are reporting all these problems that scientists get from in all kinds of manner and means. So the EPA now wants to cut out all of the science for its deliberations based if people want anonymity in order to give their medical information. Well, who in the world would give their medical information without having the usual protections for medical information in place? The US EPA now has a proposal on a 30-day comment period to get rid of this. Now, this was tried before going through Congress, and Congress is not the beacon of human health and the environment that it maybe once was in the 70s, bipartisan-wise. But it was all this craziness was defeated. Now Pruitt wants to implement it at the US EPA. That means that in order to make policy, regulations, to establish concerns, if you use human health data and you don't have transparency as to who those people are, forgetting even the international issue that Good scientists go to India and study the pollution. They go around the world and study the pollution, and those people are not turning over their health records. And here in America, we have strong laws suggesting that you shouldn't unless you waive it. It's confidential. They now want to end the use of science that has led to the discovery of what Marilyn's talking about, PM 2.5. So the U.S. EPA will not, if this goes through, and by the way, the chemical industry is all for it. Mm-hmm. They've come out and said they're all for this. Surprise, surprise. This is going to happen unless, we get football stadiums full of people to say in common sense, we don't want science to be anything. Now, you may say, well, the law would never allow that. And you might be right. But do you know how many years it will take for that? In the meantime, the U.S. EPA is going to be literally dismantling the nature of what we do in epidemiology in this country and around the world, and the science. And that will impact these people outside of AK Steel. And the thin reed we have there to hang on to is Ohio has one good thing in its law. It's had it in its law for years. That's the air nuisance provision. And we don't have to zip a body into a bag to use the air nuisance provision. If it bothers you and it's interfering with your life and property of a number of people around the facility, you can go into court, into federal